Have you ever seen a speech or a presentation where the Q&A or question and answer and question session had no power? This is when the speaker either lost control or allowed someone to totally dominate the Q&A or even change the topic. Well, when you see speakers like Gary Vaynerchuk, that's where he does his power Q&A that's just fantastic. And in fact, he can bring that Q&A to a crescendo to make him look awesome and really connect with his audience. And in fact, he wrote a whole book called Ask Gary V with Q&A because it is and can be so powerful in a presentation. So we're going to talk about questions and how you can control questions in your presentation. So developing that question power is very important because it really will help make the difference between you looking really good and really not good. Let's jump into it. First, put in your email address so I know where to send the information to. Make sure it's correct, because I don't know, I can't read your mind. Then we were talking about deliver your passion with questions. This is the last session in Deliver Your Passion. And put in alias if you don't want to give me your name, if you don't, because other people will see your name, so put in an alias if you put in there. So now we're looking at questions, the last of Deliver Your Passion. Oh, how can you build question power? Well, we have a few hacks, because the Q&A sessions, questions, can make you look awesome or make you look like an idiot. But with these hacks, we can help you take charge and make sure you get those questions and help your audience with the value that you're bringing. First, and these are, again, your exercises for the next 2 days, because obviously you can't do them right now. What you'll be doing is asking these questions and practicing and rehearsing these with your friends, neighbors, relatives. Watch speeches on YouTube, see how the speaker handles Q&A and what she or he does to control the audience or keep them on track to answer the questions and move on to the next one. First, before you start Q&A, set the expectations. Say we're going to ask questions for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or we're going to ask questions at the end for 5 minutes, or you can ask questions any time during the presentation. And that one takes a little more pacing to handle. We'll talk about that in the pacing session. But mention things like time, the length of it, and the topic. Okay, well, I'll be talking about this topic because I've had questions. For example, I was leading a seminar on communication skills. We were talking about charisma, and one of the attendees really wanted to talk about management communication, but that wasn't why everybody was there. So I politely asked him if he could move and we could talk about it afterwards. And he was really persistent, but I still wouldn't let him do it. So also just tell them, okay, because there's a lot of people, I'm going to start with one question per person. So one question. Because sometimes they'll want to add the second or third or fourth. And if you can set these expectations at the beginning, you have a much better chance to really control and guide that value of the Q&A session for your audience. Second is repeat the question to the audience. Sometimes the only person with a microphone is you. And if you're the only one with a microphone and somebody asks you a question, people in the back can't hear it. So you want to make sure that they hear it, especially if they're way back there. So that's part of the reason to repeat it. Second, you want to repeat it to clarify that what is that question. And the other reason to repeat for the question is so you can give yourself some time to think and make sure you answer that question well. And this is very important. And next time, or number 3, acknowledge questions. Both the good questions, oh, that's a very good question, and a hostile question. I found that as a seminar leader, if someone's not happy, they're going to want to ask you a question to get you, right? And if they want to try to get you, you want to be able to acknowledge that question with very important, and I will make a big deal when someone asks a question. I'm like, hey, everybody hear this? This is a very important question. And I can't answer it. Okay, so don't be afraid to tell them that you cannot answer that question, because sometimes you can't. I've been asked questions that make it seem like I am the Lord God, and I'm not, because and I couldn't change or do or answer some of the questions that the way the audience wanted, because it was a hostile question. I was set up to get buried or look poorly. But after a while, I learned to do these things, and it helped me quite a bit. Another tip is you want to alternate sides of the room. Take one question from this side of the room, one question from this side of the room, one question from the back of the room. First of all, this is just polite for your audience. And everyone feels like they are being heard. Second, what this does is it helps control the audience. And if someone is hostile, and we'll move on to that next one, okay, and you can actually have a better control of your audience, because if somebody doesn't, if they're hostile and they do want to get you on a question, they have to pretty much ask 2 questions. And the first one, they really can't get you. And so if you are alternating sides of the room, then you're not even within their eyesight, and it helps you keep control of that Q&A session. Because if somebody wants to argue with you, they have to keep going. And if you're already looking at the other side of the room, they can't argue. Very important. Now, know how to handle all these kind of situations. Practice with them. Watch YouTube videos if you need to, if you get a lot of these. And if you're getting a lot of hostile questions, that might be telling you something. Something's going wrong in the presentation, or there's something going wrong somewhere else. And it might just be the venue or the event. And we talk more about that in the impact session, which is the next section of this course. And don't be afraid to tell that audience member, hey, let's go offline. Let's talk about this later. Because you don't have to keep going if you can't. Right? And there are times when it's perfectly appropriate to say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that right now. I need more information from you. So let's please talk about this now. And then maybe I'll make an announcement to the seminar or workshop or the audience later on. So I know I used to do that quite a bit. And often that was enough for everybody else. You could just feel the whole audience just relaxing, because it was so tense with that one person. Then number 7, avoid these 4 mistakes. First is letting someone attack you. Okay, always try to focus them to attack the topic. Okay, don't let them attack you, and don't fight back. And just point towards the topic. And if they're really trying to attack you, say, remember, in the ground rules that I set, we were going to talk about the topic. Okay? Then we also don't let one person dominate. Even if no one else is asking questions, you don't want to let that one person dominate, because it's not them. They did not come, everybody else in the audience did not come to hear that one person talk. And don't let someone incite you to argue. Agree to disagree. Use some of your best verbal gymnastics on that, because that Q&A is not for that person to be put on the platform to speak to that audience. And the last one is, don't let that one person in the audience or a group, actually these say one person, but it could be a group for any of them, don't let that one person hijack the topic and go off and talk about another thing. So remember, you have the microphone. Use that microphone to get control back and ask a different question in a different area. That's why you want to go around. Again, for the next 2 days, go practice these and try them at least 3 times a day. Whether it's in a break room or asking colleagues or family members or friends to ask you questions, fine. But do it. Because this is an important part of you really ending on a strong note in a presentation or crashing and burning. And with a few hacks and practicing a little bit, you can make yourself much stronger and much more powerful. That's why it's so important. So, practice your power questions. Make that final impact strong.